Life in 360 with the Mindset Chick. 12 years ago, things were very different for me. Things were very different for me. I was homeless. I didn't have my own place. I was living from pillar to post, um, basically asking for handouts because I had no set idea of how to do adulting for me, how to be a parent, a responsible parent. I didn't have any positive examples to go by. So everything I kind of had to learn on the fly. Um, I believe the first time I became homeless was when I was 18, actually. So actually, it was about 17 years ago for me. Um, but the first time I became homeless, I was 18. I had already had one daughter, and I remember getting into an argument with a family member, and their alternative was, all right, you don't like my rules, you gotta go. And I remember being so distraught, and I was like, you know what, whatever. I'm going to do what I want to do. I'm grown. I'm going to do what I want to do. um, so at that time, I remember moving in with family members. I was literally going from one place to the next. Um, I couldn't keep a stable job. Um, I honestly did not have my own place until my late 20s. So that's literally almost 10 years of just hopping from pillar to post. That's not a good look as a single parent, as a young mother. Um, it wasn't a good look, and I didn't understand it at the time. I just figured I would just fake it until I make it. Um, I wound up at shelters. I stayed at the YMCA for women. I've stayed there, I believe, 3 times. In my 20s, I stayed there. One of the times I was staying at the YMCA was due to abuse, which I'll cover in a different series, in a different part of the series. But I stayed at the YMCA for women a few times. I stayed at a group family shelter called Interfaith. Um, I've stayed at another shelter called the Shalom House. And even with me being at the shelter that many times, it was almost as if I wasn't learning the lesson that I was needing to learn at that time, so that I didn't repeat the same cycles, so that I didn't end up in the same situations. It was like my brain just was not computing. um, what else? In between staying with shelters, um, I was also staying with family and friends in between that as well. So I did a lot of hopping around. Um, I wasn't really sure what I was trying to do with life. I didn't understand at that time that I needed to turn my situation around. Here I am bringing children into this world at that time, and I didn't have a stable environment for them to be at. Um, what does it look like? So this could be your happy coworker who never shows like that life is wearing her down, because deep down inside she's personally ashamed of her why she's homeless. This could be that silent family member who seldomly says anything because she's always being judged unfairly by everyone, who don't know the specifics of her story. And every time she goes to say something or just ask for a little bit of advice, people always assume that she's looking for a handout, when actually she's just looking for somebody to talk to, someone to get sound advice from, someone to give a listening ear. This could also be the mechanic who just got screamed at by somebody, yet still addressed you with a polite hello. This could also be the struggling single mother or father who hit a rough patch and can't seem to catch a break with life's many hurdles. It could be an elderly woman, it could be a man whose spouse just passed away and they can't identify a single reason to keep living in the home that they once shared with their spouse. And rather than feel like a burden to their children, if they have any, or feel like a burden to their family members or their closest friends, they rather just check out, forget it, walk away. During that time of being homeless, the last time, which for me was about, I'd say 8 to 10 years ago, it's when I realized that I needed to make a change. I realized that I couldn't walk around looking for handouts anymore, because that's what I was doing for a while. And I'm not saying that applies to everybody, it just applies to me. It was at that time that I realized that the only way to really give my children the opportunity and the chance to be better than the situation that they were born into was for me to make that change. And it took a lot of hard work. It took a lot of crying. It took a lot of just doing what I needed to do. Whether it was working 1 or 2 jobs, whether it was working 1 job and I'm working 12 to 14 hours straight, just to make sure financially we were okay. It took a lot. And then not to mention at that time, I can honestly say that I'm so thankful because I have a spiritual mother who saw me at my lowest. She saw me at my lowest, and I mean my lowest. And all she would do is just talk to me. She'd always remind me, I'm not judging you. I just know you have the potential to be better than what you're allowing your situations to make you. And she would give me sound advice. Whether it was another place that had a better job opening with better hours, better pay, a better life, work, balance schedule for me and my children. She would also give me advice on places that had better openings as far as, a place to live, some place that I could afford. So I'm forever thankful for that, because God sends us people to be kind of like a guide to us, and sometimes we overlook it. But having her in my life, she was one of those important persons that literally started a pivotal moment for me. How does it, or how can it happen? Honestly, homelessness can happen to anybody. Anybody. I remember, like I said earlier, the first time I became homeless was because of an argument. Another time I became homeless was because I was staying with friends, and here I was paying the bill. Well, my portion of the rent, I was paying half, and I was also paying my half of the bills. And come to find out, 6 months later, the rent wasn't getting paid. We got an eviction notice on the door, and everybody was looking at each other like, how did this happen? I understood what happened, because once I really thought about the situation and this person's habits, I understood that they weren't using the money that I was giving as part of my share. They weren't using it to make sure that all of the rent and the expenses were covered. They were using it to go drink. They were using it to go hang out. And that was a no good situation for everybody involved. I can recall another time where I became homeless because, like I said, I was in an abusive relationship, and I got tired. I got tired of being mistreated. I got tired of being hit. I got tired of whenever I would call the cops and they would come, it was dismissed as if my abuse did not matter. I got tired of that. So one day after my twins were born, I literally took what could fit in a diaper bag and I left. I remember catching the bus and I left. I didn't have no reason to stay. I couldn't find any more excuses that I could come up with in my mind to convince myself that staying in that relationship, staying at that address with that person was the right move. Um, do children suffer or grow courage from it? There are a lot of children that suffer from homelessness. A lot of them. I know so many of them. I have nieces and nephews that have suffered because of it, have estranged relationships with their parents because of it, and now they are adults and they're just figuring out life day by day. Can they grow courage from it? Yes, they can. We've seen stories all the time where athletes and celebrities and famous people, they have come from less than perfect backgrounds, whether they were homeless, whether they were growing up in shelters, and yet and still, despite the odds, they were able to defy them. So it can happen. Kids can grow courage from it. Is it an ideal situation? No. But as parents, it's our job to make life comfortable for our children. It's our job to raise them responsible, to show them the right ways to go about things, to cultivate in them a healthy atmosphere, one where they can talk to us, one where they can share their feelings and emotions with us, one where they can grow and we can teach them life lessons at an early age. That way they don't do and fall into those same cycles that we did. And that's something that I talk to my kids all the time. I tell them all the time about stuff that I did growing up that was dumb, that was reckless, that was immature. I talk to them all the time about how things was when I was growing up. I talk to them all the time about um, situations that I dealt with um, just growing up as a teenager, whether it was dating, whether it was school, academics, whatever the case may be. We talk about it. We have those transparent conversations, and I invite them to share their opinions as well. So, the last question that I have on my list is, what was my lesson and what have I learned? My lesson was that every day we're a new person. Every day we have the opportunity to be better than what we were yesterday. Every day that we wake up, we're not the same person that we were yesterday. I firmly believe that when we choose to still be that same person, that's a conscious choice to do that. My lesson also was that if I wanted to make something great out of this life, it was up to me to do it. It was up to me to say, you know what, this habit or this choice that I'm making, this decision that I've made, it's not working out for me. It's time for me to pivot. It's time for me to pivot. And don't be afraid to pivot. I was always one of those people where I was afraid of change. I was afraid of change because I felt that if I couldn't control the unknown, how could I make this decision? Not realizing that if you tap into your wisdom, you can make the right moves, especially if you consult God first. And honestly, through this whole entire time that I was homeless, I wasn't talking to God at all. I wasn't praying to God. I wasn't discussing with Him how I felt. I wasn't asking Him for the wisdom to make my situations better. I wasn't relying on Him to give me the strength to leave situations earlier than I did. Um, I wasn't doing all of those things. And so, because of that, because of my hard headedness, because of my stubbornness, because of my ego, I kept going around in circles. I kept repeating those same lessons. You would think after the first one or two times that I was homeless that I would have got the memo. and did something different, but I didn't. I didn't. I kept doing the same thing, expecting a different result. That's crazy. That's crazy. Even for me, that's crazy. Sorry, it's a lot of mosquitoes out here. um, but one of the other things I could say that I've learned is that with God, all things are possible. And you could do anything you dream that you can do if you put your mind to it. One of my sisters, she used to tell me, if you need to write it out and make it plain. You need to be able to see it so that you can make a conscious effort every day to achieve that goal, even if it takes you in steps. And that's what a lot of us don't do. We don't write down our goals. We don't make it plain. We don't write down the achievable steps. We don't even consider a realistic time frame. We just say, okay, this is what I want to do and I'm going to do it. But then somewhere along the line, we either give up, we make so many mistakes that we convince ourselves that we can't do it, or we don't start at all. And I can honestly say that not starting at all can be the worst thing that a person can do. When you're stagnant, there is no change. When you're stagnant, there is no development. There is no growth. When you're stagnant, there's nothing going on in the mind. So then that leaves your mind open for the enemy's tactics to get to you. Man, listen. I learned so many things. And then, also I have my grandmother to thank. My grandmother, she adopted me, and a lot of her teachings really came 360. Hence why I call it the series 360. But a lot of her teachings, a lot of her lessons came 360. And when we're kids and we're being told by adults, this is that is this, don't do this because, don't do that because, we don't always listen. We're hard-headed. I'll be the first to admit, I got a hard head. I got a real hard head. I can be stubborn when I want to. But here I am years later. I'm an adult now. I have children now. I've made so many mistakes. I've made so many bad choices, bad calls. I've trusted in a lot of the wrong folks. And yet I'm still here. I'm still here because somewhere along the line of going around and around in circles, I started saying, you know what, I don't want to go around in a circle. Maybe this point I want to draw a straight line. Maybe I want to go straight this time. Maybe I want to try this direction this time, because me doing what I'm doing is not getting me anywhere. Me having the same circle of friends that want nothing out of life isn't getting me anywhere. Me continuing to live with this person because I have nowhere to go, yet they're not treating me right, that's not getting me anywhere. I had to start showing up for myself. I had to start giving myself a level of accountability that no one else could give me but me. I had to start being accountable for my situations. I had to start being accountable for how life was at that time. And most importantly, I was a mom. You know, we can't always move and do things at the whim. I had to really start to get myself under control. Think about my moves before I made them. And once I started to do that, things really started to turn around. It took a while. I'm not going to say that when I started to do things right that I didn't fail. You will literally fail your way to success. And that was a quote I heard. But it's so true, because you will literally fail your way to success. Do I feel that I'm there right now? By no means, not at all. But I make a conscious effort every day to be better than I was yesterday. I remind myself of my humble beginnings, of my homelessness, what it taught me, what it showed me. I remind myself of that. And it's not in a way of self-defeating myself. It's to remind myself that that's not where I want to be. That life can be better than we ever known it to be if only we would take a chance on ourselves. Speak positivity into our life, speak positivity into our circumstance, and choose today to make that conscious effort to change. So, homelessness for me was absolutely terrible, but it was also one of the best parts of my life because it's one of the key chapters in my life that helped me to be who I am today. And I often find myself talking to, young men and women who go through homelessness. Either they're staying at a shelter, whether it's the Bethesda mission, or some of them are sleeping on park benches right now. And I just offer words of encouragement. If I know a job that's hiring, I offer them that. I offer them a few different options because information is wealth. Knowledge is wealth. And what better to keep it to myself than to pass it along? So that's what I do. But again, I just thank everybody for tuning in. This is Life in 360. I know this video isn't perfect. The sun's going down. I was really trying to catch some good lighting, but Life in 360. It's what you make it. The highs and the lows, the ups and the downs. It's what you make it. Be great. Be great. Remember what it took for you to be who you are today. And stay humble. Stay humble. This is the Mindset Check. Life in 360. Peace out.